Hello, everyone. This is one of your hosts, Pete Fabiano, and I'm joined here with
the other of your hosts, Matt Walker. How you doing today, Pete?
Good. Welcome to another edition of Capcom Confidential.
All right, there we go. We're doing another one. Do you know which one this is?
You know, I got it wrong the last time. I'm thinking we're 19 now.
All right, somewhere around there. Good deal.
Yeah,
not quite,
we
not
can't
quite
even keep
20 yet.
track. There's so many. Just so many. Prolific here.
That's right. That's right.
But we have another special guest, which is great. Someone from another division.
Another division.
That's right, not Division 1.
Not R&D 1.
That's
okay.
correct, but Division 2.
Division 2.
The other division.
What kind of titles do they make in Division 2, Pete?
Well, we know that they're working on Monster Hunter, Iceborne.
Iceborne, okay.
Yeah, and some other titles that have come out of that section have been what, Matt?
Well, in terms of anything aside from Monster Hunter, I think at this point they have all of the, let's see here, they have
Japan-centric
stuff, and then they have the fighting games too, right?
Yep, that's right. They had Street Fighter, they had Ace Attorney stuff, that Mega Man,
okay.
Right? That's all coming out of Division 2.
Okay.
So for those that want to know, we have a character artist here with us today. His name is Elie, and I'm going to butcher his last name because it's French. Is it Setbon?
Elie Setbon.
Elie Setbon.
Hi, everybody.
Ooh,
Yeah.
do that again.
What, my name?
Yeah.
Elie Setbon.
Oh, yeah. Oh, baby. I like that. I like that.
Yeah, he's chewing gum, so you get to hear him smack his lips. It makes it sound all the more sensuous. That's okay. So yeah, today we're just going to go through your story and all that. But beforehand, we got to start by saying, of course, please subscribe. Tell your friends. We're losing some momentum, to be honest, and we hope that you guys will continue to listen to us and give us some feedback. Let us know what you want to hear. We're going to continue to interview as many different people within the company in different fields of what it takes to get a game published and out there and developed. So yeah, today our character artist is here to tell you his story.
All right. So there you go, Ellie. So you have the French name. So I guess you're from the France.
That's correct. Yes, I'm from France. Grew up in a smaller city, but close to Paris.
Okay.
So yeah, Paris suburbs.
Cool. What was the name of the city?
It's called Aulnay-sous-Bois.
Ooh, I like that.
I'm never going to say that.
I like that.
I can do the whole interview in French if you want.
Ooh.
That'd be great,
I'd like
but
that.
we would not understand a word.
That's right. I'd like that, though.
Yeah.
What is the city known for?
Nothing. It's really, really small,
Really?
and it's just Paris suburbs. Actually, it's kind of known. It's kind of on the internet. It's called Paris Ghetto.
Yeah.
Ghetto, like it's not as good as France, or like seriously slum type, the old way of using
Ghetto,
it.
as in that's when there is like riots in France and stuff like that. That's where it happens. That's where people burn cars and stuff like that.
No kidding.
Oh.
That's where you get robbed when you come from the airport and you go to Paris, stuff like that.
No kidding. That's
So,
the town you're from.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the Detroit of France.
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
There you
something
go.
Like that.
The Detroit of France.
The Detroit of
Yes.
France. Okay, at least the Detroit that I know.
Shout out to Detroit.
You know, I'm from around there.
You are.
Yeah.
Are you from a suburb of Detroit?
Yeah, technically Pontiac, which is
Pontiac. Where do they make the Pontiacs?
Yeah, you know, they made the Pontiacs there, I think. And well, you know, it's named after Chief Pontiac.
Right.
So there's that.
I'm not familiar with
We
it.
had the World Cup back in the early '90s at the Pontiac Silverdome where the Lions used to play.
Now, let's go back to...
Yeah, let's go back. Yours is more interesting.
Well, I
Yours
mean,
is more interesting.
yeah, your hometown seems like it's much more interesting than mine.
Nah, I don't think so.
So
what-
what's the population?
I have no idea. I have no idea. It's small. That's all I know.
Like 5 people? Or
No. It's not a village. It's like a city. It's like I would say 30 minutes by train from Paris.
Okay.
So you know, like a lot of people just commute every day, going to work to
Right,
Paris and
Okay.
going home there. So yeah.
Interesting. What did so you are an artist.
Yes.
Were you always interested in art, like ever since you were a kid, or what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty much when I was 6 or 7, and I watched my first episode of Dragon Ball.
Okay.
And
Z or regular Dragon Ball?
Dragon. So in France, it's always been called Z.
Okay.
I didn't know about Dragon Ball, not Z, until later on.
So you didn't get the early stories. You didn't
Yeah,
get
no.
Goku as a little guy with a tail.
I don't think so. Yeah, no.
Okay.
But then yeah, like it was my first episode, and I think like almost right away I took a piece of paper and I record the episode, I posed it, I took a piece of paper and I started to like try to draw
Okay.
the character through the through the paper.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, you're using like the what is it, like that carbon paper? Is that
Yeah,
what it
yeah,
is?
yeah,
yeah. To
exactly.
trace the
I don't know how
used
to
use
call
that when
it
I was
in
a kid.
English, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably carbon paper. So was Dragon Ball, was that something that was just kind of on national television there, or was that something you kind of had to like find in order to watch it?
So at that time, so when I was a kid, there was this show on the Wednesday morning that was airing Japanese animes.
Okay.
I think it was probably one of the first show that did that in France, but it was on one of the main channels, so it was actually very popular. And it was, on Wednesday everybody had school off, so all of the kids were watching that on Wednesday night.
Really?
Oh, morning, sorry, Wednesday morning. Obviously.
Wait, so you don't have school on Wednesdays?
No, not when you're in primary school.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's-
Do you have school on Saturdays and Sundays or no?
No, it was like Monday, Tuesday, and then
Thursday, Friday.
Is,
Okay.
Is it because they believe that it's better for children to not be so wrapped up in education and kind of just going to school, and it's more important to spend time with family? Is it something like that?
I guess so.
I like
mean,
that.
This stops. Like, it's only primary school. Like,
Right.
it's, when you turn, I think 10 or something, you go to middle school, or
Right.
Okay.
whatever the kind of equivalent in
Yeah.
France, and that stops. Then you have class
Sure.
every day.
Well, a young kid also, they have trouble keeping their attention for long periods of time, right? So
Yeah.
that's pretty. That's interesting.
That's really interesting. Okay. So I was 7 years old. What did your parents do?
So my parents both work in theaters.
Cool.
My mom, she's retired now, but she was working in the Paris National Opera Theater or something like that.
Okay.
And she was handling pretty much like all of the props that you have on stage.
Cool.
So she's a prop master.
So she's not building the props.
Right,
but
okay.
She's in charge of making sure that they have all the props that they need. So
Okay.
there is like a workshop where they build props, and
Right.
then she can also like buy
Sure.
stuff that
She just had to make sure that everything they needed was on set.
Yes,
Right.
yes. And then my dad, he's doing mainly like lighting on like a smaller theater in the suburbs too of Paris.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow,
So
okay.
kind of like kind of related to art.
Yeah. They're both very artistic. Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay.
So yeah, when I started to paint on the walls in the house, they didn't complain.
No kidding.
They were very very nice. with
Wow,
that.
they were really
Yeah.
accepting.
Wait, so
of it.
you-
That's amazing.
You really painted
I did.
on the walls.
Yeah, they actually encouraged me.
Like, hey, go ahead. Just, we just fresh painted a new coat on that thing. Just go ahead and write whatever you want on the
Yeah,
wall.
they never really cared about like interior decoration. Maybe
Okay.
because they're used to the theater sets and stuff, and my house used to kind of look like a theater.
No
set. So the walls were kind of like bare-ish, and they were super happy when I started to draw on them. They bought me paint, and they were like, "You have all these
Here's your
canvas.
canvas."
Just,
Oh, that's really cool.
Use it." Yeah.
Man, what were some of your favorite things to paint then? I assume Dragon Ball was one of them.
Yeah, I was painting Dragon Ball
Yeah.
on every wall in the house.
No kidding.
It's pretty much the only thing that I was painting.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that was 2D art. You were
Yes.
doing mainly painting at that point. Eh? Did you ever try any sculpting or anything like that?
No, I was really interested basically just in manga, so I was just trying to draw stuff.
Okay.
The 3D aspect came like much later on.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay. So 7 years old, you're doing that. What happened in high school? What was high school like for you?
High school for me, don't take it as an example for anybody, young people listening. But for me, it was pretty much being in the back of the class, just drawing and listening to music. And then,
By the way, for those who can't see him, he is always wearing headphones on the back of his ears.
Yeah.
yeah,
Always. I've never seen him without them.
Yep.
yeah, that's because I never take them off.
Yeah. Even in the shower.
Even in the shower, they're waterproof. No, they're not.
I believe that for a second. So.
Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead.
So high school was just that. I was really not really interested in mostly what we were supposed to learn. I had actually good grades until I was like 15, I think.
Yeah.
Then directly went from pretty good to pretty bad.
Okay.
Somehow. And then it was really hard for me to catch up because I never really learned how to actually study and
Huh.
stuff like that. So suddenly I had to do that. I didn't really know how. I didn't really want to because all that I was interested in was art
Wow.
at that time. And so my parent kind of pushed me to get the, I don't know what it's called, like basically that kind of like small degree that you get at the end of high school when you turn 18 or something.
Okay.
So in France, it's before you go to university, right? Like if you don't have that degree, you cannot go to university,
Right.
public universities. So they kind of pushed me to get that. So I just kind of gambaro until
Yeah.
I barely got it.
Okay.
But then my plan was always to go into an art school, and they don't really care about your degree. There is like a how you call it, like a contest or whatever for the entrance.
Okay.
Right.
So all I knew is that I had to make sure that my drawing was good enough so I could get in.
Okay.
So your parents, when they saw your grades failing, they didn't come up to you and say, "Hey, you need to get these up." They were more like, "Okay, we see that you have an artistic talent. We're gonna go ahead and push that."
So it was both. They were like, "It's great that you're drawing. It's great that you seem, for my age, I had a good level." So they were like, "That's awesome." But we're not sure if it's like the safe option.
Right.
So it would be great if you also could have like better grades. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And you got that high school degree thing. In the States, we have something called a GED. I don't know if that's
GRD,
something.
right? GED. GED.
I thought
You're
it was a
right.
GED,
You're right.
yeah,
It's the
yeah.
GED.
But that's really just like the equivalent of graduating from high school is all it is. It's not necessarily that, like, it's not the thing you get when you graduate. That's what you get from high school is a high school diploma,
Right.
right?
Okay.
And then yeah, what happens is if you get the GED, like regardless of whether you go to
It's
high school or not,
equivalent.
that's
Right.
yeah, basically the thing that says, okay, you've completed everything that would be the equivalent of going to high school. I
But
don't
those
know
are
if that's-
separate. So I think you're probably just
Interesting.
talking about a diploma. I
Yeah,
think, or it might be a
probably.
different structure in France.
And for instance, just from what I know, it's just one diploma that they give you at the end of a high school. Either you get it or you don't. And
Okay.
if
Right.
you get it, you can enter into public universities, which are pretty much free in
Okay.
France. If you don't, then you cannot, and then you can go to private, schools or whatnot, which cost money. It's like in
Okay.
the States.
Okay. And so you basically got it, and then
Well,
you're able to go to art school.
Yeah, so I wanted to go into art school that was teaching me the stuff that in order to get a job.
Okay.
And most of the public, art university in France, it's still like more generalist kind of like art knowledge that they teach you, and I was not really interested in that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go to one of these private school anyways. The thing is that we didn't have a lot of money, but there is a very nice system in France where if you can find a job in a company, then you go to this company for 3 weeks, and you go to school 1 week. So that's every month, right?
Okay.
And the state is going to pay for the school,
Wow. Okay.
and your job is going to not pay you, I think, and the state gives you a little bit of money.
Okay. Wow.
So yeah, they have this system, and that's what allowed me to go to art school.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what kind of job did you apply to at that point?
So I got super lucky. So my mom was working. One of my mom's friend was working in a CG company they were using motion capture a lot.
Yeah.
And she was working on the costumes, for the motion capture costumes.
Oh,
Yeah.
right?
Right,
The
so
actual
she was-
suits, right?
Yes,
The mocap
suits.
suits.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
She was making that. So so she had this contact, and I went to this company, and she just basically explained that I needed something because obviously I had no experience, right?
Yep.
So she explained the stuff, and then the people in that company were like, "Yeah, sure, let's go." Because so I started with motion capture, right? And for motion capture, there was no formation anyway. Like nobody had a degree in like motion capture.
Sure.
Early
sure.
stages,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
So they were like, well, or people are not experienced anyway. So I just went, I talked with them a little bit, and I guess they were like, okay, he doesn't seem like he's completely crazy. So fair enough.
That's the only criteria there.
Yeah.
Huh, okay. How did you feel at the time though, thinking that okay, well, this really has nothing to do with drawing?
Yeah. So what happened is that I didn't really care at first because I was in the industry.
Okay.
I kind of realized that I was lucky to be able to both go to that school and even like have like a foot already in the industry, even though it was not drawing. Um, so that was very important to me. And then what happened is that it was still interesting to to learn how to do that and see how people use motion capture and integrate it on 3D characters and stuff. And what happened is that while I was studying, I was building like kind of like a mini portfolio
Cool.
throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, I went to see the modeling boss guy at this company, and pretty much every day for I guess the last 2 or 3 months, I was going to see him every day, and I was telling him, "Yo, I sent you my portfolio. Can you take a look? Like next year, I'm still at school, and I would love to transfer into modeling,
Okay.
3D modeling." And yeah, I went to bother him like every single day. Did you
Wow.
have a look at it? And at some point, he was like, "Well, I guess he seems motivated enough," and I switched to 3D modeling on my second year.
And
Wow.
see, here's the thing: every single person we've talked to has always had some sort of passion or drive to
Yeah.
really try to get into what it was they wanted, and this is no exception, right? I
Yep,
think
yep,
that's
yep.
really great. You kind of found what you wanted, and you didn't give up. You just kept trying to do it. That's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, right? That if you don't try, you don't get anything, right? So
That's right.
I just I had nothing to lose, to just
Yeah.
try as much as possible.
Yeah, man. So, how did you learn how to 3D model then? Just having been around those guys, was that enough or what?
No, so at school.
At school, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so at school I had we were doing 2D drawing, we were doing 3D modeling, we were doing
Nice.
animation, we were doing a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Regarding CG.
Cool.
So I learned at school, and I built this kind of mini portfolio that I sent to the modeling guy.
Okay.
And but then on my second year working into the modeling department, that's where I learned the most.
Right,
You know,
hands on.
Yeah,
That makes
because
sense.
you get to actually work, and everybody around you is already a professional. So like
Yeah.
any question that you have, any blocker that you have when you're working, just ask the guy next to you, and he unblocks you right away, and you just keep going.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
Man,
that was
that's
awesome.
It's really nice that you happen to work in such a cooperative environment.
Yeah.
There are a lot
Definitely.
of times where there are environments that don't have that. So, yeah, collaboration is very important, and cooperation is important, especially when you're starting off, and actually throughout your life, right? You need to establish that type of environment, so it's not constant competitiveness between the two. So that's actually a really fortunate situation you found
Yeah.
yourself in.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
really cool. Man, okay. Uh, I feel like I was going to ask something. I don't remember what.
Well, I'll ask something then. So you did that for how many years?
So 2 years. So sorry, before that, I actually went into like a art preparation school or something for 1 year, which was more like artistic. So there was no 3D, and we were doing stuff as in taking like what is it called, the nutshell, and using them, putting it in paint and using them as stamps and like doing collage and stuff like that.
Okay, with
Is-
real world objects, you mean? Right?
Yeah. I mean, not only that, but it was this kind of atmosphere.
Okay.
It didn't really work out for me.
Hmm.
So I kind of like stopped that. And then the next year I entered this 3D school in this company. And I did this for 2 years. So yeah, my first year was CG. So, the project at the end of the year was like a small, CG animation.
Right.
Where you model your characters and your props, and you just do something simple. And then on the second year, that school had for the first time a video game, like graphics, class, and then I volunteered to be part of this first class, and then I went. We were two artists in this class. Like we had two people in this class because it was the first one.
Wow.
So it was just me and one other guy, and they put us into the game design class, and then the game designer would design their games, and then me and the other guy, and then some other guys later on also were interested, so they joined a few of them, but we were basically in charge of making all of the graphics for their games.
Wow, okay.
So you did animation as well,
Yeah.
and French animation is very particular, and it's well renowned right throughout the world. I have a very particular style. It's very interesting.
Yes.
Did you ever think about going into animation?
Yes. So when I was in high school, right, and I was drawing all the
Right.
time, I actually thought that I was going to be an animator,
Mhm.
2D animator. That was the first thing that I had in mind. And I don't know if you guys heard about the Goblin School. So it's a very very well known like animation school in Paris,
Yeah.
and people come from literally all over the world.
Right, right.
To apply.
That
for
makes sense.
I think every year they have like 2 classes of like 25 people,
Wow. Okay.
and when you go to for the test, there's like I don't know 2,000 people or
Mm.
more than that.
Mm.
And I actually went and I tried. I did the test twice, 2 years in a row, and I failed.
Yeah.
And I failed the two times. And then that was actually right before I went to my first year of art school, and then at the end of that year. Then it didn't work out. My second option was the school that I went to, and when I went there and I started to learn 3D modeling, I felt like I was I felt like it was a lot easier for me.
Mhm.
I felt like I was getting like very very good result in 3D without like like more easily than when I was drawing. Pretty much.
Interesting.
Mm.
Felt more natural to me somehow. So
Interesting.
so yeah, so then I just branched into 3D. Yeah.
Were you always interested in video games, or was that something that came with this course?
No. I was interested in video games. So yeah, first, right, I was watching Dragon Ball, and then from that I started to play. What was it? Chrono Trigger was like the
Yeah.
first Japanese, I think, RPG
Okay.
that I played. I had a Nintendo, like the NES, before that, and I was playing Zelda, and I was playing. I don't think I played like any of the Final Fantasy that they had, like the first ones,
Okay.
first ones. But then yeah, I played Chrono Trigger. I played Final Fantasy, other like RPGs like that on Super Nintendo back then, and I thought it was like super cool. That's how I learned English, by the way.
Oh, that's really cool. By playing
Really?
RPGs like that.
Yeah. Because like the Japanese games, like some of them were translated into English,
Mhm.
but not into French.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you had to know English if you wanted to play a Japanese
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I started to be interested in video games with this, and then later on with like PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2. Um, PlayStation 2 I played Monster Hunter.
No kidding.
Right? Yeah,
Wow.
I've been playing pretty much like every Monster Hunter since the first one.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. And yeah, like I really really wanted. That's always been my goal, to go to Japan
Mhm.
and work on video games in Japan.
Yep. Yep.
Pretty
Yep.
much.
Yeah. Same with me. Did you realize with the Chrono Trigger that Akira Toriyama did the art for
Of
that?
course,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
of course.
So that
It was
was
probably
lost
not a
on you.
coincidence
Yeah.
that I ended up
Right.
playing that game. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I remember
Man.
having that game, the what would you call it? The attract screen, but I guess it's for games. So you have the opening loop
Yep.
for the game. I remember leaving it on in my dorm room and just blasting the theme song
Oh, yeah, cool.
and over and over because I liked it so much.
Yeah.
I still have that game in the box. I have the
Nice.
box and
Nice.
everything. Yeah.
Nice. Man. Okay. And that's all right. So that's how you started getting interested in video games, and then man, but by the time Monster Hunter and PlayStation 2 was out, I assume you were already kind of through school at that point.
I think I was still in high school.
Still in
when
high
this
school.
came out.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, because it was like the PlayStation 2 era.
Yep. Early 2000s, right?
Yeah, early 2000. So I was 16 in 2000.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so still in
Wow.
high school.
Was Monster Hunter your favorite Capcom game? What was your favorite Capcom game?
Yeah, it was Monster Hunter.
Monster? Man, that's
Even back then, wow, that is
Yeah.
that is
that's
amazing.
hardcore, man.
Yeah, I actually played. That was a few years later, but I played Monster Hunter Frontier.
Okay,
Um,
the online one.
for like, I took like a year off at some point in between job, and this year I spent it all like playing Monster Hunter Frontier, like almost every day, like 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that actually out in France, or did you like play like a Japanese account?
So it was in Japan and it was in Korea.
Okay.
If you wanted to play on the Japanese server, you had to pay, but the Korean server were free.
No kidding.
So I played on the Korean server first.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Since I already kind of knew the game, it didn't really
Right,
matter for
right,
me to
right.
not really
Right,
understand.
even if you didn't
Yeah.
understand Korean. Oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Holy
But
crap.
yeah, I was motivated. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's some motivation.
Man. So what happens
Yeah.
after you finished this program then, the 2-year program?
So a little bit before I finished, I went on vacation with my parents
Okay.
to Vietnam,
Okay.
and I loved it. And I had a lot of friends from Asian friends from like their parents were like from China or
Right.
Vietnam or whatnot. And I had black friends. I had like this the area around Paris is very very multicultural.
Cool.
And I started to be very very interested in other cultures.
Cool.
I also started to be very tired of French culture and French people. So basically, when I finished school, I decided to just I saved like a little bit of money, and I decided that I was going to take that money and just go to Vietnam and see what was going to happen.
Interesting. Okay.
Because Vietnam is super cheap, right?
Okay.
So that's what I did.
Wow.
I finished school. I just took a plane ticket and just went there.
Okay.
I got super lucky again because getting there, it just so happened that they were just starting to get into making games,
Okay.
but they were just really starting, being part of the industry. So they had nobody with like any, like even a basic level of 3D. So I got there. I had like a small portfolio that I built at the company and at school,
Mm-hmm.
and I showed that to one company that I knew from like a friend, and like right away they said, "Yeah, we want to hire you."
Wow. Okay.
So I stayed. I was in Vietnam for 2 years, and on my first year, I worked in like I think four different companies
Okay.
because it was like super messy. Like company were like opening, closing because their project were canceled because they didn't know what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hopping from company to company like that, and then on my second year, I ended up teaching 3D
Wow.
to Vietnamese students.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, and that was super super nice because it allowed me to just go over all of the basics again.
Yeah.
Um, and so I guess it just how do you say solidified all the bases for me. So,
Wow. That's really cool.
and it was super cool too because I was like 22 or 23 by then, and all of my students were 22, 23.
I would say yeah.
So
It seemed like
after
they're about
class
the
we
same
just
age.
all go out and eat together and like,
Cool.
do stuff. So it was really fun.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Actually, you had a really good education in the sense that not only did you learn at school, you actually also got to do it in practice with the job.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, what people often forget is that many people, when they teach, it reinforces what they've learned.
Yeah.
And so because now you have to be able to explain all of the experience that you have.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, well, there's some interesting studies out there that also show that mentoring people actually really helps to give you satisfaction in the workplace. And that whole mentee mentor relationship is really helpful as well. I mean, as long as you're not partnering with somebody who's horrible,
Yeah.
but it does help because the one person on the mentor side is happy to impart the knowledge, and the person on the mentee side is very happy to receive it. Right. So.
Yeah. Also, like my 2 years that I spent in that CG company, everybody was like extremely nice, and I was asking questions constantly. I was bothering everybody all the time, and everybody was super patient. And I guess they showed me the example of how everybody can benefit from sharing knowledge and stuff. So it, yeah, it felt pretty good to also teach. But at some point, the reason why I stopped was just because at some point I wanted to be part of an actual production. Right. When
Right.
you're teaching, it's a huge satisfaction when you see some of your students like finalize their project at the end of the year, um, and you see that they're super happy, they're super proud, and you feel super proud too. But like at some point, I wanted to be myself, right, on the production side, and ship projects. So that's the reason why I stopped.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, man. So what happened after that then? What happened after you quit those companies in Vietnam?
So I went back to France, and I started to look for a job, and I happened to find a job in Barcelona, Spain. Um, and then I moved to Barcelona.
Okay.
Yeah. It was I worked at a company called Gameloft that they're making games for cell phones.
Yeah, I remember Game Loft, yeah.
And they were the studio that I went in was making 3D games,
Yeah.
and they were trying to make games for phones, but that were looking as much as possible like the console games.
Yep.
That was the goal there. So that was very interesting for me. So I went there, and yeah, it was this was really super exciting to be working on an actual game. And how do I say that? The production cycle there was very short because we didn't have a lot of budget.
Yeah.
Um, and we had very strict deadlines. Some of the games that we were working on were tied to movies. I worked on the official game for the Adventures of Tintin.
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
So, for instance, when you work on that, you have to release the game, I think, the day after the movie is released or the day
Okay.
before or something,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it cannot move, it cannot be
Yep,
delayed
yeah.
Right.
because you lose the commercial
Right.
opportunity,
Yeah.
right? So it was great because we were I learned how to be like really efficient,
Mhm.
and I learned how to work with tight deadlines and how to make sure that things were finished on time with as much quality as possible.
Yep.
And then same thing there. I feel like I was very lucky because they had a lot of talented people, very talented people, and everybody was very open to share. So I learned a ton, just like bothering all of the 3D leads over there, just
Cool.
asking them, how do you do this, how do you do that.
Wow.
Work with some crazy people too. Very interesting. There was an art lead over there, I guess, a guy who was making 3D who was pretty much coming and going to the studio like anytime he wanted. So sometimes he would like arrive at the studio at like 4 a.m. and then work until the next day. Work until the afternoon, maybe like 6 p.m. and then go home. And like it was just kind of random, but everybody was super passionate.
Cool.
And yeah, it was very interesting to work in that environment.
I remember, didn't Game Loft make like basically like the Call of Duty rip-off games that
Yes.
were really they were really popular on iOS and stuff. Yep, I remember that.
I also worked on a game that was a ripoff of Uncharted
Okay.
for iPhone.
What was that called?
It was
Let-
called Shadow Guardian.
Let's
Okay.
not call them rip-offs. Let's call them inspired.
Yeah,
by.
that's probably better.
Yeah.
Probably better.
Inspired.
But yeah, I mean, you could definitely looked at a lot of those Game Loft games at least back then, and you could really tell like what they were inspired by, right? Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and they were like the kings of the mobile space there for a long time.
Yeah. I think they're still in a pretty good place.
Yeah, I reckon they are. Man. Wow, that's really cool.
So yeah, learned a lot. Optimization is also like a big thing, obviously, when you work on cell phones.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right?
sure.
And
Especially with all the limitations, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was also very interesting. So I learned how to make everything optimized. I also learned that something that people in the game industry tend to forget is that performance are shared between VFX, character
Sure,
art,
right.
environment,
Resources are limited.
shading,
so-
rendering, everything. And
Yeah.
it's if your personal, when you're a character artist, for instance, if your character is not optimized, if you're an environment artist and your textures are not optimized, your part of the visuals is eating
Yeah.
Right.
performance, and that's taking them away from other
Other
parts.
places.
Sure.
Yeah.
So this was very interesting. I got to work with a very cool and talented technical director that they had, super motivated too. So the guy was building like remote control planes on his weekend,
Cool.
and
From scratch?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
and yeah, I learned a lot of stuff that are not directly related to art, but in the video game industry it's art and technology, right? Like
Yep.
they both work
It's
together.
the-
your
it's
assets
blending
going
the
to
two
work with
together.
the code, right?
Yeah.
So it was very interesting for me. And yeah, actually I worked for a year as a character artist there, and then I got promoted as a lead character artist, and I worked on the Tintin game as lead character artist. And then after that, I worked as a lead artist on a racing game that's called Asphalt.
Oh, yeah.
It was Asphalt 8.
Yep, I remember Asphalt. Yep.
So I mean, I also learned how to, started to learn how to manage people. And the funny thing is, that was the first game company that I worked in, and that was for me that company in terms of like management is like far, far, far above any other companies that I worked in after that.
Okay.
Things were extremely efficient. Even with these tight deadlines and with these, very strict performance, restrictions and
Mhm.
stuff, like everything was working like really, really well.
Really cool.
So yeah, no beating around the bush. Everything was very straight to the point. We
Great.
knew what we wanted, and you just we were almost able to follow the schedule that we created at the beginning of the project.
Wow,
Which
okay.
in the
Impressive.
game industry, I think is
Impressive.
pretty
Yeah, no kidding.
pretty good. So yeah, I learned a ton of stuff there.
That's really cool.
Really cool. Yeah, and I
Man.
stayed there for 2 something years.
Well, especially getting a chance to have that kind of experience with not only the efficiency, but then also having to manage different aspects like that too, man. That's a really impressive work to have done so early in your life.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
figure at this point you're like mid-20s, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's correct.
Man.
Yeah, the studio manager there kind of tricked me into making me a manager.
Okay.
In the sense that I guess he saw that I was very motivated. Because I was always asking like, who's gonna make this? Who's gonna model this boss? Like, is it assigned to someone already? No. Then in this case, can I do it?
Right.
Or, I was always trying to ask and stuff. And then when the first game that we released, which was this inspired by Uncharted game. At the end when the modeling was finished and we were just kind of testing the game, right, going through QA, I was going around and I was just like, hey, why is this? You see this enemy? He has like a hatchet kind of weapon, but then the texture is wrong. And then people were like, oh yeah, you're right. And I was going around trying to find out who made that and why it's not correct. And I was, do you want me to help you and stuff?
Oh
So
wow.
at the end of this project, the studio manager, he saw that and he was like, can you make some more, we have a little bit of time, so let's make some more guns for the character. And then he was like, this guy's gonna help you, but you're responsible. And then I was like, oh yeah, sure. And then actually he made me kind of
Right.
Right,
The
right.
guy. Yeah,
Smart.
but I
Smart.
really didn't realize it
Very
while I
smart.
was doing it. Like
Right.
the guy, I was just talking with the guy and being like, oh, you want to make this gun and I'll make this one. Oh yeah, cool. And then he was giving me the gun for me to integrate, and I would be like, oh, this, can you change this a little bit? And I was actually already doing the lead job just for with one guy.
Right.
But I guess for him it was like a little test. And then on the next game, which was Tintin, we had a meeting before we start, and then he was like, Elie, you're gonna be the lead character artist on the game. And I was like, wait a second.
Man.
What?
That manager guy's a genius.
Yeah.
That's great.
And
That's a perfect way to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so too.
That's definitely one of the good ways to do it. It's like shadowing, right? When you have somebody
Yeah.
come into a company,
Right.
that's how we used to have training, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
put people together. So it doesn't always work because not the best person, but it involves everything that you just said. Now you are the one teaching as well,
Yeah.
right? Because you're responsible, so you have to extol what you had done and what you wanted and what your vision is and what you're looking at. And so now you're taking a little bit of a focus away from just the creation, but also now putting it in terms of direction, managing expectations, all of that stuff. That's
Yes.
great. That's fantastic, and you learned from it too. And
Definitely.
it wasn't like, hey, you're gonna have to teach that guy everything. It was more like, hey, you have to work together, but you're responsible, and that's all he needed to say.
That's amazing.
And for me, being a lead that's what it means. It means
Yeah.
it's not like you're the boss, now you can do whatever you want,
Right.
and boss people around. It means that you're responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only reason why you have the power that you have as a lead is because as the responsible person, you have to have control over what's going on, because if not, you cannot
And
guarantee
knowledge.
the quality. Of course.
Knowledge. You have to have
Of course.
the knowledge as to what they're doing. But you also learn not to micromanage. You could have taken the role of micromanaging,
Yeah.
which is very dangerous.
So, but yeah, I think as a lead, if you take it as more like I'm responsible, it's my responsibility to make sure that whatever aspect that you're leading in the game comes out, with good quality and is done on time and everything, and you just try to make this happen, and you consider other people as helping you do that. Then I think you're gonna be a lot more successful as a lead than if you have this idea of like, yeah, now I'm the boss, I can do whatever I want, and
Well, that's a very, very good point. The way I always looked at leadership is actually you're a support role.
Mhm.
The leader's role is a support role. The leader's role is not the person to go out there and bark orders. He's the one that when something goes wrong, he's supposed to come in and help fix it. He's the one who's supposed to make sure that people are on the right path. He's the one that's supposed to make sure that well, I should say he or she, but I mean he is both. He or she is the one that's supposed to be out there looking at the big picture and making sure everyone's working in harmony to achieve it. And it's not an easy thing to do, so
Yeah, definitely
um,
not.
but yeah, I definitely think of it as someone who's helping everyone drive them forward.
Yeah, man. Makes total sense to me. So you were there for 2 years, and then what happened after that?
So I burnt out a little bit because I was very motivated and I was doing a lot of overtime. Not because anybody was asking me to, just because actually when I started Tintin and then Asphalt, and I was leading more and more people, I still wanted to do art. But the problem is that leading was taking me basically my whole day.
Yep.
So then what I was doing is that at 7 p.m. when everybody was going home, I would stay and I would start basically working on my own tasks.
Yep.
And I did that for maybe a little bit too long.
Okay.
And at some point, I was completely burnt, and
Okay.
I didn't really know what I was doing, why I was here, where my life was going, or anything.
Okay.
So I really needed like a break from that. So again, I went back to France.
Cool.
Took a long vacation. I think I just didn't do anything for like 6 months or something.
Okay.
Um, and then actually I was thinking about going back to 2D at this point, and I took a course at Numan Workshop in Los Angeles.
Sure.
It was a 3 months course. So I went there and I took this course, and on my way back, I went through New York City, and it just so happened that I remembered that there was a Game Loft studio in New York.
Okay.
And I contacted my old boss and I told him, "Yo, I'm in New York. Do you think I could visit the studio? I would really like to see what the studio is like."
Mm.
And he said yes. He contacted the people. Got me like a. They contacted me to say, "Hey, you can come on. If you're free at this time, would be great." So I just went there, and basically when I arrived, they said, "So yeah, we looked at your portfolio and your resume, and it looks great. When can you start?"
Wow. Okay.
So you're like, wait a minute, when did anyone say
Yeah.
anything about a job?
Yeah, and I have to thank my old boss from Barcelona, because apparently he told them that I was making blueberry pancakes in the morning, quote unquote. Um, so apparently that's how it went, and then I thought a little bit about it, and I was like, yeah, actually that sounds great. Like I've never
Wow.
been in the States before. Seems like it would be a very interesting country to spend some time in. So I'm in, and then just prepared stuff for the visa and all of that, and then I went and I worked at Game of New York for 3 years.
You got to live
Okay.
in one of the greatest cities in the world,
Damn right.
from my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. It's a great city. New York is
Yeah.
it's a really really interesting city.
Wow, man.
So yeah, that's what I did, and then there, same. I mean, I started as a 3D artist again. So this is gonna come back like, I think 4 or 5 different companies that I worked in. I started as a 3D artist, and then I get to be leading something later on. I really don't know how to advertise myself as a lead, I think. So anyway, so that's what happened in New York too. So I started as a 3D artist, and then at some point, I started to be. I changed my title a bunch of times. It was like character lead artist, art production lead. I was studio technical art lead or
Holy
something
Jesus.
like that.
Okay. Wow.
I think that was partially thanks to the years that I was teaching in Vietnam, and when I had to like look at other stuff than just modeling,
Yeah.
Right.
like also animation, rigging, physics, all of that, and it just gave me a little bit of insight on like everything that is around,
The whole
modeling.
production pipeline,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
and I think that helped me a lot later on.
Wow.
I feel like a lot of what I was doing was just going through the different divisions. So talking with the game designers, talking with the programmers, talking with the producers, talking with marketing, and just trying to make sure that everybody was going the same direction.
Wow. Okay.
Because I realized that a lot of time like marketing is expecting A, but when they talk to the art department, for instance, they don't really speak the same language.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's a lot of misunderstanding. I
Yep.
feel.
Oh yeah.
And I realized at some point that somehow I was kind of able to understand both sides, or talk with the programmers, talk with the game designers and everyone, and kind of understand. So you know, I was kind of like in a position where I was able to kind of synchronize everyone. Um, so, and that allows me to, you know, work efficiently because I'm not making stuff and then later on it's like, oh, but that's not what we wanted, or
You ever
and
think
then-
about becoming a producer?
I know, right?
That kind of sounds like that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've been doing a lot of scheduling, like a lot, and I don't know. One of you talked about managing expectations just before,
Mhm.
and this was something that I learned at first from the studio manager in Barcelona. That was very very efficient. Is that when you have a deadline, you give an estimation for when you can finish something. As a lead, like I'm gonna tell the producer or whatever the client or whatever
Right.
that it's gonna take a month, right?
But it's actually going to take you 3.5 weeks or less.
Or like 3 weeks.
Yep,
But then I'm
see?
gonna talk to my artist and I'm gonna tell them we have 2 weeks.
Yep, that's exactly
You know?
the way
Yeah.
I would handle it.
And then what happens is that when the artists are like, "Oh, I want a little bit more time because I want to polish this and that," you're like, "You got it."
You know what? Let me look
Yeah,
into it. I'll make
exactly.
sure. Yeah.
So
I
they're
mean,
happy, and then after 3 weeks, you kind of finish, but you still have 1 week to kind of fix
polish up
whatever
and whatever.
is
Yeah.
wrong, bugs or whatnot. And then if you finish a little bit earlier, then you go see the producer, like we're done, and then he's super happy too. So
Yeah.
I think that's very very important.
Well, again, yeah, that's the managing expectations, and you're not. I think the real fine line you have to walk here is you never want to lie, right? You're not lying about this. You're just trying to actually gauge how long it's really going to take. And a lot of times, an estimation is just that, it's an estimation. No one knows the reality, right?
Yep.
So you got to put in that extra buffer to make sure things are
Yeah,
correct.
definitely. Personally, I like to call it a lie, just because
Whatever makes you feel better.
It's a good lie, of course, but I like to call it a lie just because I don't know. It sounds more fun, I guess.
Well, maybe it's just it comes down to a moral issue, but I don't think it's ever really good to lie. White lies aside, you're not going to be like, hey, it takes 1 week when actually you have 2 months, right?
Yeah. No,
So,
of course.
but again, it's all about filling in the buffer, making sure people have ample time and schedules
sure.
are fair.
Yes.
And estimations are just that. Some people just don't see everything for what it's
Yeah.
actually going to take. There's so many things, and other things can come from left field. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Something can come from nowhere.
Yeah, I think to me what matters is the final product.
Sure.
Very like final result oriented. So as long as everybody's happy and the game looks good and it's finished on time, I think
It's impossible to
Anything
make
goes.
everybody happy.
it's hard. It's hard. But,
I think what you mean to say is the majority of people are happy, right?
yeah,
Of course.
but yeah, as long as the result is good and
Right.
people are not, going crazy.
There's no riots in
Yeah,
the
exactly.
in the basement.
So yeah,
Okay. And that was Game Loft in New York.
yeah,
You
and
were there for 3 years.
yeah, I was there for 3 years.
Okay.
I got to work with Pixar there.
Holy
That's
crap,
awesome.
That's awesome.
Because I was working on the Cars game,
Okay. Yep.
and obviously, we had to make sure that all of our assets were
In
up,
line.
up to par,
Right.
in line
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
license and stuff. So I was talking with the people at Pixar directly, and that was also extremely interesting to see their feedback.
Oh, I bet.
All of the guidelines that they have for the characters, for how they move, for their facial expression, and all of that.
That makes sense.
So same thing, I learned a lot from that experience.
We do a lot of that kind of feedback too on our brands too, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
On Devil May Cry, of course, we have all kinds of different feedback that when we're doing all kinds of licensee stuff, like when we're doing figures and whatnot.
Sure.
We've had all kinds of figures that we've been putting out here, and lots of feedback on those, and like to explain like this is why Dante stands like this, but and this also he can't stand like this or he can't pose like this because that wouldn't make physical sense, this, that, or the other thing.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man.
So yeah, and well, after that, I just same thing. I was starting to think, okay, I'm like 30 or something like that, and I was thinking, maybe because I've always wanted to go to Japan, right? So I was thinking maybe now might be a right time. So same thing, went back to France, prepared my portfolio, and then came here, and I started to just apply. Well, you're not supposed to apply for companies when you're here on a tourist visa,
Mhm.
but I
As
applied
far
for a company.
actually, as far as I understand, you can't work on a tourist visa. You can apply.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
so there's nothing
that's
wrong with
good.
applying to
All right.
companies. The problem is if you're not working, if you are working with a tourist visa.
Okay.
So you
yeah,
didn't really bend any rules.
then great.
Yeah.
But then yeah, and I started to work in a small company. I was in Tokyo at first.
Right.
I would just talk to everybody that I knew, and then through connections, I found someone that was working in a small game company in Tokyo, and the guy actually they were working on the game, and they were using this cars Pixar Cars game that we
No, no
made
way.
on the phone as their reference for the
Wow.
game that they were working on. So when I told him, yeah, I was character lead on that game, he was like, "Oh, that's great. Let me talk to my boss."
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So same thing. I guess I got lucky too with this, and so I worked in this small company.
So you spoke no Japanese at
I
the
spoke
time.
zero Japanese. Yeah. There was a few foreigners, including the guy that I knew in that company, so that helped. Also, the boss of the company actually he studied in the States,
Okay.
so his English was really good, and his mentality
Mindset,
his mindset was not 100% Japanese. So
Right.
I guess that helped. Um, and then yeah, actually, when I was looking for work, I had contacted people at Square, right? Because Chrono Trigger and Final
Sure,
Fantasy
yeah.
and all that. And they actually told me that they were interested to hire me, but right now they don't have the budget. They will need to see blah blah something, which to me means no.
Okay.
Right.
Like I never think when someone tell me yeah later, to me I just forget about it.
Right.
But it actually was true in this case. So they did contact me again like a few months later.
Wow.
So I went for interviews and stuff, and then when they really gave sent me an offer, then I accepted, and then I moved from this company to Square,
Okay.
where I worked on this VR manga project,
Okay.
which to me was super exciting because I love manga, and also the VR aspect. One of the reasons why they were interested to have me there is because the performance are a lot more restricted
Sure.
than on console
Sure.
or normal PC stuff.
Yep.
And because I have this experience in mobile games with optimizing and all of that,
Yep.
that was
You can
was
apply
where I
that,
fit.
yep.
Yeah,
Because now you have two different views of the same scene that you have to render out.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went there and I worked on that project. It was very interesting. Same thing. I was in a department at Square that had also a lot of non-Japanese people.
Okay.
So all of the mails that we were receiving, it was like always English followed Japanese.
Nice.
So you would have it in Japanese, and then the next
okay.
thing would
That's
be
great.
in English. We had support people.
That's
who were
awesome.
Just there for whatever paperwork or whatnot. You have questions.
Let's
with
say you
the
needed
contract
help
or-
finding an apartment or something like that. would they
all
help
of,
with
yeah.
that?
Well, didn't help that much for the apartment.
Right.
But everything work related. You were never blocked because of Japanese, because there were people to help you.
I see.
Oh,
I see.
Whatever happened. So that was very nice too. It's a very very nice environment to ease in the industry here in Japan.
That's amazing. Did you end up working on more like gamey stuff at Square Enix or?
No, I worked only on this project.
Okay.
We released it, and then after that, yeah, for various reasons. Well, I wanted to one of them was I wanted to work on bigger projects.
Okay.
More, because the project that I was working on, Square, everybody knows Square, but the project that I was working on was not one of the big projects,
Sure.
and I wanted to be on bigger projects.
Right. Final Fantasy or Kingdom Hearts or whatever.
Let's say that there is something at Square where like you cannot officially transfer from one department to another.
No kidding.
Really?
Yeah. So, the only thing that you can do is leave the company, and before you leave, they can check with the other department if they're looking for someone right now that fits your profile, and maybe you can switch.
Wow,
and
okay.
enter there. But
So you basically have to put in an offer to leave,
yes.
and then they'll decide if somewhere else wants to
Yes.
take you.
Right.
Wow,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
risky.
Yeah, it's risky.
Yeah. So when I left, I got a few offers, but it was not the stuff that I was
Right,
most interested
right.
in, and because I had the offer here at Capcom.
So you had applied here.
Yeah.
Before you put it.
Yeah,
in.
yeah. I didn't just like up and left and
Right.
then figure out what I'm gonna do now. Yeah. And then now I'm here.
Nice. So now, are you character artist again, or are you?
Yeah, I'm a
something else.
character artist again.
Okay.
And by the way, at Square, I entered as a 3D modeler, and I ended up being a character art lead
Amazing.
on this project.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
So are you doing modeling right now? Or?
Yes,
Okay.
doing character modeling.
Doing character modeling. Man. Okay. That's crazy, man. That's one hell of a story. There's a lot
Yeah,
of
and
interesting
it's
stuff going on
it's
there.
great because everywhere you hop to, you really gained a lot of different experiences
Yeah.
as well as skill,
amazing.
and you got to live in multiple territories, which is pretty amazing because you know, I mean, I think you're just the type of person who loves learning, but you got to learn in so many different aspects, and you kind of have to have an adventurous personality to do that because you know you left your hometown, you moved to an unknown country all the way in Asia. You moved to Vietnam, and then you moved to or Spain, and then you moved to New
Yeah.
York, and then you were going to, or before that you were going to school in California. So now that you got to experience two different flavors of America.
Yeah.
You got to see things all over the world, and now you're back in Asia, but this time in Japan, which is different from a lot of other Asian countries. So
It's very different from Vietnam, that's for sure.
right, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you have got experiences on the outside as well as the inside, and also yeah, you just seem to have a personable demeanor about yourself, and I think people like you, and you have the ability to kind of manage people in addition to having that
Hopefully.
That's
background.
amazing, man.
Yeah, if you ever need an agent, just let me know.
Oh, dude.
sell
Wow.
you.
Wow, I'd love to have an agent.
I'll take 10%.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. Good deal. How are you liking it here so far?
Here in Japan,
And in Capcom.
here in Capcom. So it's a bit hard
Yeah.
right now,
Okay.
and I guess the reason is that all of the stereotypes that you hear about working in Japan. When I got in Japan, and the first company that I worked in, and then when I worked at Square, it didn't apply at all.
Nice. Okay.
Nobody was doing overtime. Things seemed very like all the whenever when in Japan there's this stereotype that everything takes a lot of time, right? Every decision that needs to be checked by 35,000 people, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, this happens when you go to the post office, for instance, to ask a very simple question,
Right.
and then you end up spending an hour and a half
Right.
there.
Because they're doing that. Yeah.
So this didn't apply for me at all.
Okay.
So I just assumed that like, oh, that's not how it is.
Right.
I was just
Right.
sometimes people have this image of places and it's not true,
Right.
right? By the way, maybe I should talk to people back at home again to fix what I told them when I told them that it was not true. But here, I guess Capcom is a lot more Japanese than the previous places that I worked in. So, like as we mentioned before, like here, all of the emails are completely in Japanese.
Yep.
All of the website related to the company are in Japanese, right?
We do have a small HR website that has things in English.
We do.
Well, for applicants.
Oh, okay. So, but yeah, like everything here, all of the game design documents.
Right. Yes.
Even on the team that I'm working in right now, there's two other foreigners. One of them is Korean and he speaks fluent Japanese. So if there is something that I don't understand, I have nobody like right
Yep.
around
Right.
me. Well, now
Right.
Troy is actually next to me, but
Oh, right.
Nice.
Right.
but before that, for my first 6 months or so, like there was nobody, so I really had to. And my Japanese is far from perfect.
Right.
So that was pretty hard, and I guess also just because everyone almost is Japanese on the team. I guess the way of doing things is also a lot more Japanese. So it's a lot of not saying directly what you want. It's a lot of people work in the way that people work here is very different from I guess people work in the rest of the world. Like a very basic example would be when you start a game on the art side, you first decide on the art direction that this game is going to take. Of course, things can evolve throughout the project, but you have a pretty good idea of where you're going.
Yep.
Here, it seems like it kind of goes the other way. First, you start making stuff, a lot of different stuff with different style, and then as you're looking at all of the different stuff that everybody is doing, you're starting to see, oh, maybe this direction is a little bit better, and everyone kind of like gives his opinion. It's not like there is one guy that's the art director and he decide about the art. Um, so it's taking more time, and for me it was pretty weird at first. When I arrived, to be said like when someone told me, now please make this character. I'm like, okay, what should he look like? And
Right.
then they're like, just make whatever you think should be,
Right.
whatever image you have in mind. And then I felt very lost.
Right,
It's like,
right,
but where is the art direction? Where are the art direction documents? Where are the references? Where
Right.
can you at least give me one image of something that kind of looks like what you want?
Right.
And it was just like, nope, nothing at all. No concept, no reference,
Right,
no
right,
nothing.
right.
Just go. So now I'm starting to understand a little bit better.
Yeah, it really depends on the
But-
team too.
Yeah.
We definitely have different teams that work in different ways here. And yeah, I mean, what you're talking about right now, that's certainly one way that some of the teams handle it. It's kind of their way of essentially kind of doing look dev, right? Of their way of kind of deciding like, yeah, we don't really know what direction we want this in. So, while we're figuring out the gameplay over here for the art over here, let's have some people make some stuff and see, let's kind of see what looks good.
Yeah,
That kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
happens
yeah.
too,
exactly. But anyways, it's just very, very different from my experience up till now.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, I was very, very lost with this, and you have like you meet with your boss or whoever is in charge of you like at the end of the first month, at the end of your first 3 months, etc. And then I was just telling him, yo, I don't understand what's going on here.
Mhm.
And he was just telling me, look, that's just the Capcom way. You got to get used to it. Don't worry about it. Just get used to it. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and again, it depends on the team. Like,
Yeah.
Devil May Cry team was I think partly because we have Itsuno-san, who's this very kind of who's a leader, is very much a leader, and he's similar to what you're used to in terms of he wants to make things efficiently. So like DMC5, basically nothing really changed in the game after the very beginning, like kind of exploration period where it was like, okay, where they kind of culminated, I should say, in the gashuku, the retreat that they have, where they all get together and they all kind of finalize the direction for the game. That was pretty early on, and like even for the art, for instance, like we wouldn't really start making like art assets until we knew, okay, this is going to be the direction this takes, and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it really just depends on the team, I think. Yeah, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that it really depends on the team. I can certainly see what you mean. A lot of times we get mired in details, instead of looking at the big picture, and so that can cause some delays or slowdown. There are certainly advantages and disadvantages to that.
Yeah.
You can look at things, models, for example, that are going to be extremely detailed and have a really good look to them. But then you suffer in the sense of efficiency and time, and trying to get to that stage where things should look and feel consistent. Sometimes you might lose consistency for the sake of one object looking amazing.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of a trade-off, and I can see certainly why you feel that way, and I do think from team to team it's going to feel differently. To Matt's point, when we do go through something like a look dev or a pre-production or just concepting, that's when you're supposed to be doing that.
Yeah.
Right. But when you go into production and that still continues, sometimes it gets a bit frustrating, and that does happen, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, like there's advantages and disadvantages about that, and however it is, it's still for me like a very, very interesting experience because I just get to see one more very, very different way of making games. So I think there's always something to learn there.
Nice.
Well, it's a very positive outlook. And ultimately, the way I look at it is like every team I work with is different, and your personality sometimes sometimes you gel really well, sometimes you don't, and depending on what your position is, you kind of have to figure out what that means for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely something that can be a challenge, but yeah, Matt and I think have been very fortunate in working at least on the team level with really good people.
Yeah.
So generally the relationships are there and we can work through that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are certainly challenges. I mean, I've been here 11 years, and I can tell you that there are times where sometimes it's really hard.
Yeah, and we've discussed before too. You know, it's just, one thing that it would be really nice is that we've talked about is it would be great if the company did have better structure in place for kind of more international.
Oh yeah,
you know,
I've come up with plans for that, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I'm actually like since I arrived here, like every time I, had to install something or go through this procedure for whatever, internal paperwork or whatnot, and it was in Japanese, and that was a problem for me. When people were explaining to me, I was taking screenshots of like whatever screens they go through, and I'm putting together some document,
Wow.
In hope that if somebody like me comes in,
That's amazing.
I can actually
Right.
name stuff, and then
I
that
think
could
that's
happen.
awesome.
That's
Just
awesome.
as a little caveat, that's going to be great until it no longer becomes valid.
Yeah,
Yeah, but no, that's amazing that you're willing to put that kind of effort in.
Yeah,
for that,
that's
you know.
awesome. And you
That's
took the
fantastic.
initiative to do it.
You
Well,
know,
I mean,
exactly,
again,
exactly.
I wish this was
Yep,
there was
totally
something
get
like
it.
this when I got here.
Yep.
So
That's
And so you're
fantastic.
making it better for the next person, and that's a selfless
Trying
act. So that's
to,
great.
Man, I mean, yeah, you can just tell just listening to your stories, you are really amazing at taking that initiative.
Right.
Jeez.
And also thinking about other people, which
my
I think
God,
makes him a good leader.
Yeah, I mean,
If we're going to analyze you now.
fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic leader. Yeah, you'd probably be an amazing producer, man. Like,
Yeah. I'd certainly like to have you on the team.
well done,
thank
dude.
you.
Well done. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but actually, yeah, more than producer, leader.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
something
definitely.
higher level than that.
Okay.
Well, hopefully a
let's-
producer's a good leader. But yeah, I mean, in this, we won't get into the details here. But
My God, good
Yeah.
job, dude.
yeah,
That's
thank
awesome.
thank you
Thank you
so
very
much for taking the time and being here with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, we don't want to take up too much time, but whenever we close out the show, we usually say where people might reach us on Twitter or any social media. If you'd like, I don't know if you'd like to announce your social media. Or
I
if you have a
am not on
presence.
Twitter,
I know.
and I'm not on Instagram or anything. So
Are you on ArtStation?
not
Wow.
even on ArtStation. I have just my own website that I use as my personal portfolio.
Cool. All right.
But yeah, that's it.
Well, search
Nice.
them out then. Matt, where can they find you?
See here. My personal account is Retro Otoka.
You changed it.
I changed
Yeah.
it. That's right. Changed it. And our Dev1 account
Sure.
is Dev1_official.
That's right.
Right?
We're at 22,000 followers now.
Yeah, we're doing all right, man.
Yeah, we're doing okay. Keep the momentum going, guys. Keep following us on Twitter. Make sure to follow us here. Actually, subscribe and follow us on YouTube as well, so we can do more live streams.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, because we want to hit that 1,000 mark. That
1,000 subscriber
yeah,
mark.
1,000 subscriber
That'd be good.
mark, so that we can finally
We
go
can use our
back to
phones
using the
again.
iPhone. We're very high tech here.
Yeah.
And
What's yours? What's your
I'm-
social media?
Pete Fabiano, and you can find me at P Fabiano.
There you
on
go.
Twitter. I'm that's my name.
That's yours, baby.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys, and have a good rest of the week.